Arizona last year was supposed to be going into the season one of the worst teams we've ever seen. No quarterback with Kyler Murray on the shelf, limited talent. Jonathan Gannon was, by many, considered the weakest hire of the head coaching carousel. Instead, Arizona was just your normal, pretty prototypical, average, mediocre football team, which they zoomed over to win totals, even though they won 4, because a lot of the win totals were 3.5. And here they are going into this year with a full year of Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
And actually, I think even almost as important of that, how about a full year of the rookie standout Marvin Harrison Jr., who is their biggest addition of the offseason? Jonah Williams comes up, fortifies the offensive line as well. They had Sean Murphy-Bunting in the secondary. But, Alex, this team is going to go how the Murray-Harrison Jr. combination goes. That will basically dictate if this team is a borderline playoff team or if this team is a 5-6 win team yet again.
I mean, what you're saying is correct, but a lot has to do with their defense more than anything. Because even last year, they were better than expected because they could score. They just really had a hard time stopping anybody. So as long as they made some adjustments and defensively are a lot better as well. Of course, Kyler Murray, there still is a lot of question marks with him and if he will be a successful quarterback in this league. Especially, we've seen the good and the bad from him, right? But, I mean, he's very mobile, and he definitely has an upside. So now having Marvin Harrison Jr., I think you're almost saying that's going to depend if they're good or great or elite almost.
I don't want to. I don't think. I think if everything goes right, they're maxing at 9. If everything goes right, maybe 10. If they get to 10 wins, you better have a ticket on Kyler Murray at 50-1 to win the MVP in your pocket, because if that's the case, Murray might win the dang thing if they get to double digits somehow. Defense, you mentioned today, we only mentioned one pickup in Sean Murphy-Bunting there. Bilal Nichols, Justin Jones, Chrissy's Tunga, L.J. Collier on the defensive front. Linebacker-wise, Kazir White, Chris Barnes, Mac Wilson, totally new linebacking core. Secondary, we already mentioned it. That was really to fortify that secondary with the corner position in Murphy-Bunting, which was their best part of their team a year ago, was their secondary. They really struggled at the linebacker position. But, you know, this is a team, Alex. They have a last place schedule. By the way, Jonathan Gannon at 16-1 at the win coach of the year is interesting as well. If you think the Cardinals are going to overachieve, he fits the profile.
Yes.
Where we talked about this last week, and we'll talk about it in this division. If the San Francisco 49ers win 14 games, Kyle Shanahan's not winning coach of the year because the Niners were supposed to be the best team in the NFC. If Arizona goes 9-8 and makes the playoffs, oh boy, a plus 330 to make the playoffs right there.
Right.
The lowest win total in this division as well. So, yeah, again, I'm not saying Arizona's going to be good. When I went through everything, they spit out the 6 wins, which is a 2-win improvement. But I feel like their ceiling is higher than a lot of teams with the lowest projected win total in their division. It's 6.5. So it's funny the way I'm talking about this with a team that I had projected to go under their win total, but they have high variance. If Kyler Murray is the Kyler Murray we saw when they made the playoffs a few years ago at the beginning of the year, remember they were the last undefeated team in the NFL just 3 short seasons ago, Alex. Not long ago. They could be a surprise. We're also going to learn a lot week 1 because they go on the road to Buffalo. If they somehow pull an upset as a touchdown underdog or play Buffalo tough, yeah, maybe this team is a little bit better, like I think their higher variance can show.
It is very interesting. So they were in the median group. 19% of their offensive drives resulted in touchdowns.
Okay.
But only 24th in points per game at 19.4.
A lot of field goals.
6th best in red zone scoring at 62.8%. But very good offensive line, returning 4 or 5 starters. Ranked 2nd in yards per rush, 2nd in yards before contact per rush, and then 4th in total run yards. So, I mean, they do have a very high ceiling, especially adding a really good wide receiver there to increase those passing yards there. Defensively, though, as I mentioned, not very good. Dead last with the Commanders. 29% of their opponent drives resulted in touchdowns. 31st in scoring defense, 25th in yards allowed. So that is a big portion of this that they need to make improvements. We don't know for sure, right? It's a very new defense working together and a lot of new players.
Total turnover in the linebacking quarterback for this Arizona Cardinal team, as we brought up. I will say this, just looking at their schedule real quick, Alex, they do play 3. Now, granted, they play the Rams, who we'll get to in a few moments, and the Lions, who we both picked to win the NFC North, and then they get the Commanders. But that's 3 straight home games. Weird things that early in the season can happen.
Very true.
Again, as we know, before a team knows that they're really bad, that was one thing with this Arizona team all year. Their effort was always A+. Jonathan Gannon had this team playing hard, even though they were overmatched. So, hey, look, you have your quarterback for the full season. Maybe they pop a shocking 9 and make the postseason. I don't think they will, but the variance with this team feels larger than any other team in this division, and quite frankly, maybe even the entire NFC.
That is such a good point, and that is why I do like Jonathan Gannon at that 16-1.
Okay.
I wish it was a little bit higher.
20 would have been nice, right?
If I was getting 20 or 25-1, I probably would make a small bet on that. But you're right; they did play very hard for him, and those home games. I mean, we're talking about the Arizona Cardinals that beat the Dallas Cowboys, upset them in between weeks 1 and 3 last year. Remember? Then that was last year.
That was week 3.
It was week 3.
Week 3. Remember, Arizona week 1 probably should have beat the Commanders. Late turnover. Commanders survived. Week 2, the Cardinals got that giant lead against the Giants. And Daniel Jones' last good moment let him back. They won that game, of course. And then the Survivor chaos came with Dallas in week 3. Dallas was a 16.5-point favorite on the road and lost the game outright by double digits. So, look, was that you? Was that your pick that week?
It was.
Oh, I don't.
I
didn't remember.
It's okay. I brought it up, and that's how I can't forget.
That's why you brought it up, because like, hey, they got me in Survivor. I'm not going to forget that when looking at with them, especially at home early in the season. Again, with Survivor, we'll get into it when we get closer to the season. I very rarely will use road teams. Very rarely, in part because of that exact situation. You never know in this league, any given Sunday, all the cliches on that.
Yep.
All right. You know what? Let's hit the Rams here. Let's hit the Rams. We have a few minutes before we can get to our guy, Ryan McCormick. Because really, the whole thing with the Rams can really be put into one whole envelope here. How do you replace a Hall of Famer? And that's Aaron Donald, who, of course, decided to step away after a career where he was the best defensive player in the league for at least half a decade. He was going to Canton on the first ballot immediately. And that's it. In the offseason this year, we'll get to those in a minute, their win total, as you see, Alex, and this was a discussion before the show, Rams at 8.5 juiced over. I still think that's good. But this team that, again, had a little bit of a different look offensive line. They re-signed Kevin Dotson. They brought Jonah Jackson back. They actually had a first-round pick this year, drafted Jared Verse on the almost a whole decade without a first-round pick for the Rams. Verse going to help their pass rush. Trey White comes over from Buffalo. They really don't lose that much other than Donald. Granted, Donald is worth like 7 people potentially on that defense. You look on the right side of that screen, kind of a even bigger version of what we just said for Arizona. We saw it 2 years ago. Matthew Stafford got hurt and the season imploded. Matthew Stafford's been there 3 years. They've won the Super Bowl year 1. They made the playoffs last year and lost a coin flip game to Detroit, where if they win that game, who knows? They might have made it here to Las Vegas instead of the Niners. You never know. But as long as Matthew Stafford stays upright and healthy, there's no reason to think this team isn't going back to the playoffs, even with the difficult division and a difficult schedule yet again, just on the virtue of playing in the NFC West.
And to your point, you were talking about their win total. I do think going over that is okay, but you're laying money there. We talked about this off air. You can get plus money at some shops for the Rams to make the playoffs. I think that is probably the best bet if you do like this team and do think that they are going to be good again, which I know Aaron Donald, we are losing him, but Kobe Turner Going into his second year, he had a very good rookie
Great
year.
rookie year, yep.
9 sacks. Their biggest thing, though, is how they are going to improve their secondary because they were 13th best in rush yards per game last year, 21st in passing yards allowed per game. We know their offense is going to be just as good, if not better. They did. So Kyron Williams had an outstanding rookie year. Now they add Blake Corum, who I really like. Think that will be a very good fit there. And then, of course, we saw what Puka Nacua did. 4th most receiving yards in the league as a rookie last year, and has his veteran Cooper Kupp. So offensively, we have no questions, really. It is the defense.
Yeah, again, the only offensive question is the health of Stafford. That's it. I mean, that's really the question, and you're right. And again, I just wonder with those numbers that you brought up, where they were really bad against the pass for the most part, they were better against the run. Without Donald, I wonder if those numbers flip a little bit.
Yeah.
I wonder if we see a much better passing defense this go around, but everything else takes a little bit of a step back because when you lose, again, Aaron Donald's going in ballot 1. First time he's eligible 5 years from now, his head's going in the can. He's getting his bust. So,
well, and it's a lot about the leadership.
Sure, that too, yeah.
What he brings in that side and getting all the players ready to go. I mean, we've seen it with a bunch of really good defensive players throughout the years.
Yeah, and guys who are not even on Aaron Donald, and the guys on, we've seen this with guys who are nowhere near as good as Aaron Donald as well.
Correct.
Again, that's just the thing more than anything. By the way, you saw it on your screen a little bit earlier, plus 105 to make the playoffs. Alex and I are in agreement on that. We think that's good. The Rams, to me, are kind of in that area with Dallas and Chicago.
Yep.
Again, if you like any other second team in the NFC South, they'd probably go with them. I think they're a click below Green Bay, who I see as the number 1 wild card in the NFC. But they're right there with everybody else in that wild card race. Real quick, the Niners, by the way, minus 225 to win this division. Rams plus 380. Seahawks 8-1, and the Arizona Cardinals 15-1. I don't like the Rams plus 380 because I think the gap is still too much between them and the Niners. It would take mass injury for the Niners to now win this division. Just too much talent, and now the fact that we know Purdy, can't argue it anymore. He's at a bare minimum a good NFL starting quarterback. That's at the minimum at this point. It's hard to justify anyone but the Niners, but we'll get the Niners later this week, Alex.
I feel like I do have to bring up backup quarterbacks because that's been my
Jimmy
thing.
Garoppolo.
We do have Jimmy Garoppolo,
Yeah.
who is not a bad backup quarterback by any means. So if Stafford is out for a game or two, he is more than capable, but still, I mean, I agree. I don't like laying that much on the 49ers because you don't know. It's a long season and there could be injuries, and the Rams could very well just win this division and the Niners still get into the playoffs.
Sure.
But I think it's their division.
Jimmy Garoppolo, by the way, just real quick, Garoppolo is suspended the first 2 games because of violating the NFL PED rules. There's some sort of handsome joke to be made in there, but my brain's not up for it. Keith probably can make it at some point. But he is suspended the first 2 games. So if Stafford gets hurt week 1, it could very easily be a rough outing in week 2. Third string quarterback for the LA Rams right now is someone it's actually Stetson Bennett. That's right. I was going to say Dresser Wynn's also on the roster, whoever Dresser Wynn may be. I have no idea. It's almost like a fictitious name more so than anything. Desmond Ritter's the backup in Arizona now as well, because, of course, Kyler's been injury prone. Ritter, who I made it well known, do not think is an NFL quarterback. As a backup, maybe he's all right for a game or 2, but if he's got to be a long-term starter, forget it. Arizona then would probably be heading towards 3 or 4 wins like they did a year ago. As good of a story Josh Dobbs was, I'd rather probably be the same fate as it ended up being for Dobbs when it was all said and done.